And so he rolled up, and this is when he attempted, or whatever it is they call him, attempted to grab my camera. So this is what happened. Yeah, so that is exactly what happened. That is what you guys are looking at right now. That's exactly what happened. And these are the kind of guys, these are the criminals. I repeat, these are the criminals that the P.P.P. put out there. These are the criminals that the P.P.P. put out there so that they can they pretend as though they're representing persons of African descent. That's
108 based on perceive, not empirical data. Look at the empirical data. Today, the permits on the A.P.N.U, they had an 89% implementation rate in terms of what they processed from what they received. An 89% rate of implementation from what they receive and process. I'm not talking about what is set aside. This government has a 97% implementation rate. In 97% implementation rate, and you score us lower. What more is needed to convince people as to the motive? So let's go on. Let's look at the motive. It's important for us to look at the motive. And by the way, the Transparency International that speaks about transparency, accountability, the local chapter here, the last time they filed the annual return at the registry was 2019. The last time they filed their return at the registry was 2019. And let us look, well, we know Enrico Wolford first formed this company. I don't know Enrico, my friend. Are you a friend of the P.P.P?
All right, buckle in. We're about to take off. Make sure that you're subscribed so you could find your way to the correct jet bridge for your connecting flights.
The P.P.P's approach is one in which people who are close to them could commit a crime and nothing happens. And the minute somebody else is considered to have committed a crime, they gone after them. And some of the same people that support them, the minute they say anything against them, they start, Jagdeo had the face, the audacity, the temerity to say he's going to charge Mohammed's for murder. I'm not defending Mohammed. I don't know who murder, who don't murder. But if a vice president has knowledge that a man would have murdered, and only when that person appeared to no longer be supporting you, you decide you can charge them, he's complicit in murder. And had we had a proper police commissioner, he would have been under investigation and on his way to jail. So let us be clear in our minds. These people do not have the interests of the people of Guyana at heart. I want you to compare the roads they are doing in their strongholds with some they are doing in other areas. And you will see who the real P.P.P. is. And as we hit the campaign trail, we will expose them more.
100% well-crafted CMOS. Only the best, because you deserve nothing less. 8 Butterfly.
Or somewhere there, and then he was living somewhere on Princess to me when I went to vid and fight and scratch. And so I don't want to get any sort of rabies or any sort of nail polish and long nails scratching me. And this is what he did to me when I went to video house, because he was living in a shop front on North Road. or somewhere there, and then he was living somewhere on Princess Street, maybe Princess Street or harboring there with some of the guys there. But he was living in a shop, a bottom house on Robb Street. And so when they got into office, when he got a position, whatever the small position he had, he started to build a big house in Diamond. So I went there to investigate, and so somebody called him, and he rushed up to me and scratching. You have to see how he's scratching. And now I can't fight with girls. I just wasn't prepared to fight, and I don't want him to scratch me nor bite me or anything, because that's all he wanted to do, was to hold on to me, not me, pretending as though he's fighting. So I make sure that I wasn't there. I beat out. He ain't gonna hold on to me for scratch me or nothing like that. So this is the incident that happened. Let me just remind you guys, please. This was in Diamond, and this is what he attempted. This is what this criminal did. And as a result of that, he was convicted. Was convicted. And now I got to get to that story so that you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly what I'm talking about. I can't get to the story, but where is it? All right, let's go to the story. Good. So in this here, this is where this is his vehicle, and I was there, and so the other vehicle is mine, and so he rolled up, and this is when he attempted, or whatever it is they call him, attempted to grab my camera. So this is what happened. Yeah, so that is exactly what happened. That is what you guys are looking at right now. That's exactly what happened. And these are the kind of guys, these are the criminals. I repeat, these are the criminals that the P.P.P. put out there. These are the criminals that the P.P.P. put out there so that they can they pretend as though they're representing persons of African descent. That's what's going on. And we've got to Yeah, sorry about that, guys. So that's exactly what happens. This is exactly what goes on, and these are the kinds of people, or pakus, that the P.P.P. put out there, pretending as though they're victims and pretending as though they are representing persons of African descent. How many of you are of the view that that thing that you just saw there is a representation of persons of African descent? You can tell me. You can talk to me. How many of you are of the view that that's the case? How many of you that thing is representing? And let me show you guys. You guys know that he was convicted, and on top of that, there was another situation where they were charged with throwing stuff in Freddie Kissoon's face. He was charged along with Sean Himes and Jason Abdullah and so forth. And that's exactly what happened. So during the course of the coalition time in office, he was convicted. I repeat, he was convicted. You saw that he attempted to grab my camera. So this is what he was convicted. Here it is. This is what he did to my vehicle. Yep, that same criminal. That criminal, this is what he did to my vehicle. Nothing happened. The police never arrested him or anything. Thankfully, under the coalition government, he was arrested and charged. And he was found guilty. He was convicted. He is a convict. This is what he did to my vehicle. You guys think it was easy under the criminal P.P.P. regime, under those goons, criminals like Kwame McCoy and Jason Abdullah and those guys? And that's exactly what the P.P.P. does. The P.P.P. doesn't accept these black guys as any sort of equals or whatever. They put them in there so that they can conduct criminal acts, go into communities, and basically, you know what they do in those communities. That is exactly what they do. And so under the coalition, at least, he was arrested, he was charged, he was placed on station bail, and whatever else. But what we do know is that he was convicted. He is a convict. That is what he is. And in terms of the evidence, look, it says, Crime Chief Wendell Blanham confirmed that McCoy will be charged with assault, damage to property, and simple larceny, a thief. Simple larceny. The simple larceny charge reportedly concerns the alleged disappearance of a computer belonging to BENCHOP. McCoy was placed on station bail after being questioned last week about the incident. Police subsequently sought legal advice on the matter. Following an appeal by BENCHOP last February, police had reopened investigation into his claims that McCoy and associates had assaulted him and vandalized his vehicle. However, police were unable to locate the file and took new statement. They were unable to locate the files. So you know what the police did there, right? Under the P.P.P. regime, the police hid the files. But I didn't give up on the matter, what he did to my vehicle. And he attempted to scratch me. And so he is a convict. He's a convicted criminal, Kwame McCoy. And now that's the individual they're putting to say that he is standing up against David Hines and that he is representing persons of African descent. Shame and disgrace. Shame and disgrace of the P.P.P. regime. This is what they are about. They're a criminal enterprise. They're not a legitimate government at all. But you're going to hear Barrett Jagdeo cry his usual self at his so-called press conference tomorrow. His usual self at his so-called press conference tomorrow, pretending as though they care about persons of African descent. Oh, yes. If they were so concerned about persons of African descent, then look how they treated this woman. And this is not the only woman they treated like that. Many others, the folks out in Linden, Amelia's Ward, and so forth. All of these things, the evidence is there. It is quite clear how they treat persons of African descent. But because David Hines says something that they don't like, they are going to cry. Oh my gosh, we are hurt. But they weren't hurt when this so-called security company connected to the P.P.P. regime, one of the gun-touting criminal, beat this African Guyanese businessman with that gun. Take a look. They didn't cry. They didn't say anything about that. It's because they just don't care. And so they come out now with like crocodile tears, pretending as though they are so concerned about African Guyanese. Yeah. And they're crying. Oh my gosh. Listen to what David Hines said. Look into David Hines. And so everything now is about what David Hines said. Call him something about like whatever Bamsi or whatever, you know what I mean? I'm a Christian guy. And so they now come with crocodile tears, the same tears that he probably used to cry over a 15-year-old boy for a little oh, what are you afraid of? You've never done it before? You know, a 15-year-old boy. The same crocodile tears now we're seeing all over again. All over again. Crocodile tears. That is what it is all about, guys. And so when African Guyanese are under attack, they say nothing. They remain quiet. In fact, they laugh, they smile at the situation, right? And then they come now. They want you, they want others, they want all African Guyanese, and even those who are not African Guyanese to buy into their stupidity, to buy into their lies, and to accept their crocodile tears. No, not me, not you. Y'all remember how he was insulted by that congressman Jesse Jackson's son when he visited Guyana, right? All of these things, the likes of Kwame McCoy and them, they have no shame. They're not leaders. They are worse than flatfoot hustlers. And so David Hines might be on to something when he calls them lick, get fresh coal, guys. Sorry about that. So David Hines might be onto something, and so it hurts them. Not hurts them in their heart. It hurts them exactly where David Hines said, like, hurting them right there. Something, of course, they're accustomed to, you know, that's their lifestyle, cathedral queen, whatever it is. And so we've got to be careful, guys, with these lick-lip individuals. They don't mean anything good for you. They don't mean anything good for the country. They're not patriotic. They are more, I don't know why people call David Hines a black pudding guy, but all of them seem to be fixated on calling David Hines black pudding man. Black pudding man. That's all they're fixated on, black pudding man. And we can assume why. Even Jagdeo is fixated on that, you know. And so you're going to hear them ranting tomorrow at the press conference, and he's going to get into all of the men. And this is bad. Terrence Campbell, Nigel Hughes, Burke, and Aubrey Norton, and all the men he's going to go after tomorrow. All the men. I don't know. Might as well call all of them black pudding guys and done. But back to this guy here. Just listen. Listen to the hypocrisy. As though he has the authority. As though he has any sort of decency to be talking on behalf of persons of African descent. And look how he opened his mouth like he's so hurt. He's so hurt. Oh my gosh, look, I'm looking at his photograph right now, and only one thing comes to mind. No, not that. No. This comes to mind, guys. Seriously, check the resemblance out. Right. Listen.
As guaranteed by our constitution. As the Afro-Guyanese and other Guyanese exercise their democratic right to support policies and leadership that actually improve their lives, they are met with insults and derogatory slurs from the very individuals who once begged for their votes.
Who once begged for their votes? It's better to beg for their votes than to rig the elections and steal people's votes, something the P.P.P. is accustomed to and something the P.P.P. has a history in doing. But come this elections, it's going to be licks like peas. All the people going to run around with their black pudding around the country, and it's going to be licks. Licks. It's going to be licks like peas against these vagabonds who have been hurting that country, against these vagabonds in high office holders who have been ripping the people off left, right, and center. And mind you, I say ripping the people.
One love, Delta 9 family. Welcome back to the flight, and thanks again for flying Delta. What are your views about what Mr. Freeman just had to say right there? What are your views? My views about it is that when is this thing gonna stop? Less than 1 million people, and it doesn't matter the government that is in power. It doesn't matter the political party that is in that government. The most important thing for me and for all right-thinking Guyanese is that the country is moving forward, and that the country is moving forward in a way that all persons with this accent, and don't forget that as soon as you jump on a flight a few hours in any direction, they can paint you with that same black brush. And the only person that you're going to be able to connect with on a railway most times is going to be somebody with this accent. So why we living like that? When we could all be expressing and achieving so many more things and having some of the best experiences. But guess what? It's a greed that is causing this thing. And until we move beyond these type of expressions in that country, there's always going to be situations like this. Really and truly, what are we really doing if we're moving forward all the time with this division and we're not making sure that, some way we holding one head? Because if we holding one head and we got international organizations doing things like what we about to hear right here, because it's an international organization, mind you, and like we absorbing destabilizing oil-rich nations, destabilization of wealthy countries, right? With way more people than is part of Guyana right now, because we know that Guyanese is more than 1 million worldwide. So we ain't counting everybody that home right now. But destabilizing oil-rich countries is something that is very popular as of recent. So we want to contemplate on that as we listen to the president right now, and he gives us insights from his perspective as he interprets the information that was presented by Transparency International. Guess what? He's saying that Transparency International might not be that transparent. We got more information on this as well that we're going to be following up with in other videos. Because we want to make the video too long. But guess what? We can hear from the president right now about what's going on with allegedly non-transparent Transparency International. We will hear directly from President Ali right now. And if you haven't already, buddy, make sure that you hit the subscription button. It costs you nothing, but it keeps you connected with everything that's trending in Guyana and in the diaspora.
Population, be honest. Is attacks on journalists and dissenting voice greater today than in 2020? When they tried to steal an election, when they drove observers out of the country, when they turned up at the counting station and ordered a former prime minister and head of an observer mission out of the building, when they ordered counting agents out of the building, when they did not adhere to the ruling of court and follow court orders, when they refused to adhere to a no confidence motion. But guess what? The transparency perception criminality ranked them higher for that. They got a higher ranking for that. The worst period in the history of our country. They got a higher ranking. I told the Minister of Finance to give you the when you look factually, more persons are ticketed. More persons are, I have to figure here. More persons are prosecuted by P.P.P. More persons came under disciplinary measures in all government agencies. But you score less. What is this? What nonsense is this? What mischief and misinformation is this? None of this matters. None of this matters. In 2019, look what they say here about processing of information. Processing of information. In 2019, all the permits for development of the Demerara port, tons of permits were withheld by the government. In the first 2 months of this new government, We approve all of those. How can you rank less? How can you rank less? That is the facts. Look, the facts are glaring. The facts are glaring. Let's look at some more facts here. Because I want us to address this. Let us look at some more facts. According to the report, the CPI ranks
Samsung, keeping us connected no matter where in the world we're located.
108 based on perceived, not empirical data. Look at the empirical data. Today, the permits on the A.P.N.U, they had an 89% implementation rate in terms of what they processed from what they received. An 89% rate of implementation from what they receive and process. I'm not talking about what is set aside. This government has a 97% implementation rate. In 97% implementation rate, and you score us lower. What more is needed to convince people as to the motive? As to the motive. So let's go on. Let's look at the motive. It's important for us to look at the motive. And by the way, the Transparency International that speaks about transparency, accountability, the local chapter here, the last time they filed the annual return at the registry was 2019. The last time they filed their return at the registry was 2019. And let us look, well, we know Enrico Wolford first formed this company. I don't know Enrico, my friend. Are you a friend of the P.P.P? What is your political motive? Then, what is your political persuasion now? Well, let's come to more recent times and examine who are the directors and who perception is taken, because this misinformation must come to an end. Let us look who are the directors. The president is Fred Collins. Fred Collins. Who is Fred Collins? Fred Collins is one of the persons who filed a legal action against the Environmental Protection Agency of Guyana, and the lawsuit alleged that the EPA had failed to enforce the liability clauses stipulated in permits issued to ESSO Exploration and Production Guyana Limited, a subsidiary of ExxonMobil. Can you imagine that? This is one of the persons who own the company, who filed a lawsuit against the government, against EPA. The question is, what is his perception? What is his motive? Who are the persons he brought on board in the interviews to fuel his perception and motive? Let me tell you what he did. He has criticized the government failure to audit the $9 billion. The $9 billion in cost. The same government who brought in the audit for Exxon expenditure. He criticized us. He didn't say anything about the signing bonus, the 18 million signing bonus. For matter of fact, he allowed them to be scored high. They got a high score for the 18 million signing bonus. We are now doing audit, and they got a high score for hiding the 18 million signing bonus from the people. That is what perception does. Perception represents a motive and a view designed for a particular purpose. I'm giving you the facts. Let's move on. The second person, the company secretary, Alfred Boulay, is a retired science teacher and environmental advocate. On January 12, 2025, Boulay, along with Elizabeth Dean Hughes, Nigel Hughes, I say Hughes, not say Hughes, I say Hughes particularly here. Nigel, the leader, is he the leader? I'm not. The leader of the A.F.C. Boulay, along with Elizabeth Danuta Radzik, Vincent Adams. Who is Vincent Adams? Is he a lover of the P.P.P civic government? He's a permanent critic of the P.P.P civic government. Nothing is wrong with that. That is his right. The P.P.P government will always protect the rights of all those who criticize, because between 2015 and 2020, they were silenced, muted. But we want them to have that ability, because that is what good governance is about. But you can't then use that ability and claim that you don't have a bias. It is important for us to know who is driving the perception. Who are the players that are involved in driving the perception? So you have Vulcan, George Jaikaran, Karen D'Souza, Frederick Collins, Kushial Collymore, and a few others. And guess what they did? They issued a statement questioning the US Exim Bank's decision to support the GTE project. So these people don't have biases? What do you expect from the perception indicator? Transparency International should answer these questions too, in the interest of transparency. Then we have Dr. Vedawati Ram. Dr. Vedawati Ram. Who is Dr. Vedawati Ram? She's a director. She's a director, okay, of Transparency International. Then we have Director Rishi Thakur. Who is Rishi Thakur? Rishi Thakur is a former member of the A.F.C., and in 2011, he joined A.P.N.U. Oh my, what more you want? These are the persons who the perception indicator is relying on. These are the persons who the perception indicator is relying on. Dr. Thakur, a former A.F.C. member, and in 2011 he joined A.P.N.U. Can you imagine if this was a P.P.P? Can you imagine if this was one of this director was Ashley Singh under A.P.N.U, and a report like this would have came out? They would have crucified him. This is the reality. This is the objectivity of the perception indicator. But let's go to some real agencies and what they have to say. Some agencies that can withstand scrutiny. Let's start. Only recently, the CPATF congratulated Guyana on our efforts in prosecuting. Look at the records, the facts from SOCU. The most cases. So all of these things have improved. But the perception from the people who perceive in an election year, the agenda does not meet. But let us look at some recognized agencies. The UNFCCC, Guyana's commitment to transparency and accountability in the management of climate revenue has also garnered international acclaim, including recognition from the UN. In 2024, our efforts have resulted in being awarded the Champion of Transparency Award by the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, being the first developing country in the world and the second country globally to meet its required submission for climate transparency reporting. I can't recall a headline. I can't recall this headline, but this is a UNFCCC, a UN body. Based on facts, not perception, we are willing for Transparency International to bring all of their perceived perception to us so that we can respond to it. I challenge them. I challenge them to bring it. Don't hide under these individuals and persons with a clear motive. Bring it and let's deal with it. Let's look at some other statements. The 2023 IMF Article 5 comments.
Study hard, work hard, play harder. Verb, nerve, and muscle power. Keep thinking and moving at any age. Verb, nerve, and muscle power.
Things change so consistently that I won't be able to tell you directly what the next piece of content is going to be about. So you gotta make sure that you subscribe. But these are some other trending topics right now that's going all over the airways in Guyana and in the diaspora. You could catch them in the playlist that you could access at the end of this video. Thanks again for watching.
A movement is absent. We need a political movement. A political movement is not a political party necessarily. A political movement is a movement advocating for change, advocating for something. In this case, we have lots of things to advocate for in Guyana. Advocate for justice, advocacy for justice, advocacy for equal rights, advocacy for equality and equity, advocacy for the end of racial discrimination, advocacy for good governance, advocacy for transparency.
Well, y'all know one thing for certain and two things for sure. I can call this government out on their bullshit. Now, this administration have been sharing cash grants to their friends and family and loyal supporters for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. Since they tap into that oil money, they have been spending it on themselves, on their friends, their family, the side chicks family. They have been spending the oil money, just not on the citizens of Guyana and the people in the country that are desperately in need of it. They haven't been spending it on them.
Power in your hand, you tell yourself that it's you alone born to run this country. So we have to get you out of the way by an election and then find a democratic process by which you come in as an equal. You are not superior to me. You are not superior. The P.P.P is not superior to the PNC, the A.F.C, the W.P.A. Indian Guyanese are